I'd like to ask you a question. How much would it cost to keep an empty house? How much would you have to pay on an empty house to make sure it's secure, let's say for 9 months? If your house was worth, let's say, £500,000, would it be reasonable of you to spend £75,000 during that year when you weren't living in the house, when you weren't using the house? Would it be reasonable of you to spend £75,000? It would be extraordinary, would it not? Extraordinary to spend £75,000, let's say, on the roof. What would that tell me? That would tell me that the roof must have been in the most desperate condition before you decided to leave the house vacant for 9 months. How bad must the roof have been in the first place? How badly must you have been looking after that house before you left it vacant? And now let's transfer that idea to propping up an idle economy, as indeed we did during the pandemic, as indeed Rishi Sunak, our current Prime Minister, did when he was Chancellor of the Exchequer during the pandemic. And he spent 15% of our GDP. He spent £300 billion, in excess of £300 billion, nearer $400 billion. 15% of our GDP. So what we've got now is a sort of hyperinflation, even if we're not calling it that. A hyperinflation out of control. And, we are being told to, Jeremy Hunt is telling us that he wants to calm the markets. I mean, how can a Conservative politician tell us that he wants to calm the markets? It's a disgrace. And Sunak is acting as if everything is nice and dandy, when it clearly is not. Sunak is effectively saying the nurses are wrong, the rail people are wrong, the ambulances are wrong, the doctors are wrong, everybody should be working 18 hours a day and be happy with what little they've got. Overworked, underpaid. Perfectly okay to have higher wages for the bankers. Perfectly okay for that. Perfectly okay to pay the bankers off. But doctors, nurses, those people who were on the front line of the pandemic, those people must continue working. And more than that, because of Brexit, there's less of them. It's a smug, self-satisfied and, frankly, dishonest approach to government. And I am increasingly ashamed. This is a government that has behaved badly. It's a chancellor who behaved impulsively. I mean, think of Germany. Germany is much better than us. Everybody has got inflation, but we are by far in the worst position. Why? Because we overreacted so much during the pandemic. And because we didn't think ahead. And now, instead of trying to solve that problem, our government is blaming the very people who were on the front line, the very people who we were clapping. At the time, I said, a clap is just a clap. Nobody wants to clap. They want money in their pocket, not the clap. It's absurd. Now we're not even giving them the clap. We're giving them the finger. Wrong. Our government and our Chancellor acted with virtual impunity and now wants to tighten the purse strings and to place a further burden on the back of the very people who suffered in the first place during the pandemic. It's a disgrace. And Hunt's idea that we should calm the markets, this is not the language of conservatism. This is not the language of forethought. This is the language of pouring oil on troubled waters. This is the language of madness. This is the language of chaos. This is the language of somebody who's coming in after the horse has bolted. But this is the same government that's been in power for 12, almost 13 years. And then, of course, we think this is the same government that let the Afghans down. This is the same government that was asleep on the beach when Kabul fell, that continued sunning itself. Oh, Raab, let's name him. We've got so many problems. We've inherited so many problems from an idle and dissolute group of ministers. And behind them are some sound minds. But none of these sound minds seem willing to take responsibility and shoulder the burden of proper office. Why not? Why not? Is it that the people who've had office have made such a pig's ear of it? Yes, I think it is. Is Labour capable of changing this? No. No. Can Labour staunch the flow? I don't know. At the moment, we are in free fall. We actually need somebody with charisma and somebody with a brain. Is that Keir Starmer? Certainly isn't Rishi Sunak. Is there somebody waiting in the wings, waiting to come and rescue us? There must be. There must be somebody who hasn't put their head above the parapet and recognized that it is time to leave the plough and get on with the work. It certainly isn't Boris Johnson, by the way. I'm not giving any Cincinnatus references with some sort of twinkle in my eye and a mop of blonde hair to my fingers. No, Boris Johnson is a done deal and out of the picture. And he's as much a disgrace as Mrs. May and Liz Truss. No, we need a political saviour. And we need to recognise that this sort of pillorying of the very people who have been doing the work is the wrong way round. I don't even think it's political, it's immoral. It's immoral to persecute the people who have done the work. And if you can put your finger in your pocket, if you can put your hand in your pocket and produce 15% of GDP to keep people happy during the pandemic, now is the time to put your hand in your pocket again, Rishi. Because you've got to sort out this chaos before it gets completely out of hand. And then you've got to rebuild the union. And then you've got to rebuild our reputation across the world, internationally. And I think this is beyond Rishi Sunak. What we've seen at the moment is better than Liz Truss. Oh, God, it's better than Liz Truss. But does it repair the damage that she did? Does it repair the damage that Boris did? No. It's not enough.